Okay, so I saw a very strange tweet by Trump recently saying that 73 million votes that were cast for him were legitimate. And that doesn't really make sense because he's on this crusade to say that there's a lot of legitimate votes. Surely some of those 73 million, and actually it's not even 73 million, he exaggerated, it's 72 million and something as of the time I'm making this. Um, Certainly some of them would be in the mix as illegitimate votes. And it's weird that he's just going after the votes for the presidency. That he's not really going after the votes for Senate races because Republicans looks like they have 50 seats in the Senate, far more than we thought they would have at this point, and they may be about to get two more. It's only uniquely the presidency. And there's really no merit to any of what he's saying whatsoever. Uh, Election officials across the nation have said that this was not just a decently run election. This was the best election we've ever had in history. No, courts are throwing out his challenges to the election results. There's really nothing to this at all. And so this is what gets me thinking, what is this about really? Is this really about court cases? Because it doesn't really seem to be about court cases or winning court cases. It doesn't really seem to, at this point, be about changing the results. But what it does seem to be, when I think about it, is playing into a narrative. You know, when I walked around, I live in the South, and when I walked around in the South after Donald Trump lost and Biden won, I walked around with my head held a little higher. I walked around because most people know that most Black people voted for Democrats, right? I walked around like I do have a stake in this country, not just as a ward, not just as somebody who can be patted on the head, but as somebody who determines the direction in which this country goes. And I think there are few things that scare white America more than that. Because for 400 years, white America has tried every which way, from making it illegal for Black people to vote, to having voting tests or very high barriers so that it was difficult for Black people to vote, to continuing to do that by having fewer voting places in Black areas, by putting restrictions in Black areas that Black people are going to have a harder time getting over, by intentionally saying in some closed door meetings that they are trying to disenfranchise the Black vote. So this is something that's not just happening overnight. This is something that has been going on for 400 years of history. And when I realized that, when I realized the discomfort that so much of white America seems to have with me walking around as if I have an actual stake in this country, as if I have some power in this country, then it dawned on me that in white America's mind, and by white America, I mean the structures in place, the 400 years of structures in place, the 400 years worth of structures in place to keep the concept of whiteness as a concept that bestows privilege onto people with a certain skin tone in American society. That whole structure. When I looked at the vote for Biden as a blow against white America, then I realized white America has always seen my vote as illegal. They've always seen my vote as something that shouldn't matter, as something that shouldn't count. And that's where the issue is. That's why they're searching so desperately, because they think that underneath it, if they look deep enough, they'll find what they believe is the truth, that my vote, that my voice is illegal because it goes up against white America. Because if you look at the way that white people voted in the last election, overwhelmingly it was for Trump. Trump would have won by a landslide. So that's what this is really about. He's capitalizing on racism. And the practical impact for that is that I know that it doesn't have to do with the individual court cases. I don't have to waste my time about that nonsense like I've been doing, because some of the arguments that they are bringing up are just desperate and ridiculous. I don't necessarily have to spend as much time on those. And we can deal with those and argue about this in the comments if this video gets, any comments. We could talk about those separately. But there's really, but really, why would I talk about it? Because that's not really the point. That's not really what people are trying to get at. What people are trying to get at is that my voice, they have this conviction that my voice has to be illegal somehow. It's just racism, pure and simple. And that's one thing that recognizing racism does in this country. It keeps you from wasting time on problems that aren't the real problem. And it allows you to realize this is what it is. Even when Trump won against Hillary Clinton, he said, well, there's 3 million illegals who voted in California and I would have won, or something along those lines. Something just, that didn't make any sense at all. But in his mind, there's something illegitimate about that brown vote. Maybe you don't have the details. Maybe the evidence isn't there, just like the evidence is never there for racist stances. But it's a belief. And then you mold the laws and you mold the structures of society to support that belief. But the belief, the foundation of that belief is racism, which has no support in American society whatsoever. And so when I look a little bit deeper, like the same thing that the same purpose of racism then is the purpose of racism now. A lot of the money that's being donated, people think, a lot of conservatives think this money is being donated to Trump's legal fights. It's really being donated to the Trump campaign so that the Trump campaign can pay off their debts and not directly necessarily to the legal fight. Just like if you weren't getting paid a high enough wage, all they had to do is point to the black people and, somehow treat them worse. And then you would feel okay because at least you were superior to these black individuals. And even slavery, the stereotypes that were created for black people weren't just created out of thin air. They were created to protect a society in which slavery was supposedly okay, in which people could make money off of black bodies. And that's what's happening here. Trump, underneath the surface, once you scratch the surface, he's trying to make money off of black and brown bodies with this lie that our votes are somehow legal. This isn't something I'm going to convince a lot of conservatives of, possibly, but it seems clear as day to me. And it is disturbing that this is going on. But it also helps me to realize that arguing about these legal fights is a waste of time. Because right now, white America is scrambling for a way to rationalize its foundational thinking that my voice does not belong as an influential one in this country. That it somehow needs to be sidelined. That I am a ward of the United States somehow, and not somebody who directs its future. And when I recognize that as a lie, it allows me to hold my head up high, because I know it's not true.